Paul Skenes pitched valiantly, and the offense was scrappy, but missed opportunities and a couple mistakes erased a shot to take down the Mets in Game 1. And that's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan, and today I want to talk about last night's game, some observations about Paul Skenes and Bryan Reynolds, some other thoughts on how the roster should change as some guys are starting to come off the IL, and we're going to talk a little bit about the MLB Pipeline Top 100 list and the national media crying about Derek Shelton. First, this game. Paul Skenes was good, but like most of the season, not terribly sharp. And it's not me guessing. I mean, you watched. Paul is so transparent when he's displeased with himself. But this is 2 times this season that he's faced the best that the league has to offer in the Dodgers and the Mets, and he's risen to the task both times. Every time out, he proves how above their weight a team like this could punch if they could ever manage to squeak into a playoff one day. Hey, a guy can dream, right? But speaking of nightmares, Bryan Reynolds. His last 15 games, a 117 on base percentage. I'm wrong. 117 average. On base percentage is 185. Not that that's much better. 233 slug. In 60 at-bats, he has 17 Ks. He's been up 29 times. This is season long here. Where a double play was possible. And 6 times it has been a double play. It's been really bad. Don Kelly faces a real difficult choice here, honestly. And the Pirates aren't exactly spoiled for choice. I think you probably got to think about dropping Reynolds down in the order for a little bit. Look, it worked for Kutch once when Hurdle did it way back in the day. Popped Kutch down in the 6 hole for a while. It caused a media stink for a minute, but you might have to do something like that with Bryan. Couple weeks. See if you can just shake him awake. You know, he might really need something like that to reset. He's not coming out of this funk on his own. Maybe the injury's still bothering him. If that's the case, they'd be further ahead just shutting him down for a couple weeks and letting him fully heal. You know, just put him on the IL if you have to. What could happen? You're going to drop out of the race? I mean, IKF came back tonight. Good performance for him. Home run in his first at bat. Really nice single later on. Made a defensive miscue, if you want to say it, up the middle where the ball like kind of skipped off the top of second base and then took a weird hop. I guess ideally you would want your shortstop to charge that ball, but I don't know. I don't know if I've ever even seen that it happen, you know? It certainly was a strange bounce. I don't know if I put that on him. And he made a really nice play earlier that I haven't seen him make this season. To rob a base hit off of somebody too. Deep in the hole, one that Hayes didn't get to. Speaking of Hayes didn't get down on a ball again. And I think one thing that you start to see with Brian Hayes is when he starts to struggle getting down on balls, it usually means that the back is starting to act up a little bit. And I think we have started to see other signs too. He's grabbing his back a little bit today after running out a base hit at first base, an infield single. It's something to keep an eye on. It's also part of the whole Jared Triolo lucky rabbit's foot, because here's a guy that he can play literally anywhere and he's great defensively. He really is. He truly is. You can put him anywhere and he's going to be good. And somebody gets injured every time. It looks like you finally might want to sit him for a while. Yeah, and then he winds up playing a little stretch again. That's why he just gets opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. He hits a ball hard every now and again, but most of the time, man, he could be confused with Kevin Newman the way he tops balls into the ground. I don't know what to make of him. He's got the frame to look like somebody that should learn how to hit, but it's just been real bad so far. I don't like what I see. I think defensively, the Pirates have options that they could probably avoid doing the IKF at shortstop thing. Again, though, man, I hate to harp on that because it just wasn't the issue tonight. It just wasn't. Matt Gorski, clearly not a great first baseman. His time has come. He got a little taste here. I'm actually happy we got to see some consistent play from him. That's not a bad thing at all. You want to see that sort of thing. I think it's a much more productive way to onboard kids, to get them up here and get to see them for a stretch of time. Now, you know about Matt Gorski. He's going to finish out the string here, I think, because they need him to play first base until Spencer Horwitz comes off the IL, which looks like it's going to tie him up for this weekend. You can only be on your rehab assignment for 20 days unless you suffer a setback, which he hasn't. So that's probably going to come to an end this weekend. And that's probably, if you ask me, when we're going to see an end to the Matt Gorski thing. Now, another guy who's been getting a little bit of a stretch of playing time is Alexander Canario. And Alexander Canario got another base hit and got things going, actually tied this game up late. Alexander Canario just continues to do little things. I think a little bit too much of an adventure out there when they put him in center field. I haven't been totally comfortable with him in left either, but they've been mitigating it by defensively replacing him late in the game. But we've seen extra base hits in 3 out of the last 4 games. He's at least gotten a hit in all these games. He's raised his average considerably just in this little bit of a stretch. And I think he's worth exploring a little bit longer. And it seems like that's what Donnie Kelly's going to do with him. And that's good. These are the types of things that I've wanted them to do for a long time. I don't think you can learn anything about these kids. Like Henry Davis is in the midst of changing his stance. He's closed his stance a little bit more to kind of try to get away from pulling everything. And I understand that it's something a lot of us armchair coaches have been screaming at the TV for about a year now. So it's good to see him do it. But they made this change like 2 weeks ago, and he's had 10 at-bats. And people are wondering where are all these results and why isn't this happening? If he keeps playing the way he's playing, it's going to take months for him to get that kind of experience. It's not an easy thing to do to just not play. I think they need to manufacture ways for it to happen. Now, you can't do it right now with Joey Bart's bat the way it is, but Henry Davis is a very superior defensive catcher. So if they can do it by playing Kutch in the outfield a little bit more like he did tonight and spot Joey Bart in the DH and see if you can get Henry just a few more at-bats, maybe a few days kind of strung together would be really nice. 2 or 3, you really want to see what he can do with a little bit of a stretch at bat. It's really hard to get your timing in Major League Baseball as a youngster if you're just not hitting often. And it's different in practice than it is in real application. When we come back, MLB Pipeline came out with new numbers, and we need to talk about where the Pirates prospects have landed. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's the game-winning shot or breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. How could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. While you're thinking about it, smash that subscribe and hit the like. I've noticed the likes aren't matching the views, and that's kind of silly because if you're here, you might as well just let your finger slide down there and hit that little thumb and say you like it, right? So go ahead and do it. That would be really helpful for me. MLB Pipeline released their latest update, and Bubba Chandler is all the way up to number 2. He is the number 2 prospect in all of baseball, the number 1 pitcher prospect in all of baseball. Connor Griffin up to 37. Thomas Harrington 84. Termar Johnson clocks in at 87, and Hunter Barco is at 93. You all probably know how I feel about these rankings at this point. But when you start to get up like to the top 10 to 20, there's a good chance that you've been scouted to death. It's not on reputation anymore. It's now about performance and in some cases readiness for the league. I expect Bubba to get the call probably in the next homestand. So this won't matter for all that long, I'd imagine. But Connor Griffin continues to rise. And Hunter Barco, is in the top 100 where he's sure to progress through as the season plays out, I would imagine. Good news for Bubba. I do think we'll see him probably in the next homestand. It'd be really hard to hold him off. And the thing is, the automatic assumption is that it would be for Carmen Mlodzinski. But Carmen's done a little bit better in the last 2 outings here. I almost wouldn't be surprised to see them make this call and go with some form of a 6-man rotation here for a couple weeks. They really are trying to stretch the innings out for some reason. And before you know it, we're going to start having to onboard some starters back into this rotation at some point. The bullpen really could use an injection. So I personally would advise just moving Mlodzinski over, but we'll see how they play it. Tommy Pham served his suspension last night, finally, for what happened with that fan in Anaheim. And we saw that he had an issue with a fan down in spring training against the Yankees too. Listen, there's just no upside to having patience with Tommy Pham or Cherington's fake numbers for that matter. Tommy Pham won't be here next year, no matter what. Tommy Pham hasn't had a season batting average above 256 since 2019. His current average is 176. His BABIP is 253, meaning even if he's getting unlucky, it's not so unlucky that there is some kind of hidden good here. His expected on-base average is 255, 3rd percentile in the league. At 202, his expected batting average is in the 4th percentile league-wide. 276, his expected slug is 2nd percentile. Go down the list, the only thing he's above average at, aside from fielding, is chase rate. He's 10th percentile for barreling up balls. Ben Cherington's silly comments about squinting and seeing a better team, or directly about how much better Tommy Pham should be based on their internal numbers, folks, they are lying. They don't have magic numbers. They don't have magic numbers I can't get a hold of. I'm subscribed to a couple services that dig in on stats. But that's for convenience. You don't have to be. You can find every number anyone has access to if you look around. The Pirates, and specifically Ben Cherington, refer to their internal numbers to claim the defense is playing well or that they're getting very unlucky. But the truth is, the numbers just aren't there. They certainly aren't as it comes to explaining why it's worth anyone's time to get what Tommy Pham has to give. it wouldn't be a big deal. They make claims like this if they didn't run the team based on them. Want to know why so many moves they make don't make sense? Here's the biggest answer. They literally think they have factors isolated that others aren't seeing. I say this again, completely unafraid of being wrong. They don't. They have an extreme belief that they know what they wanted and massage everything to continue convincing themselves of it. Hence, it takes all of like 35 games to completely go from being tied to your manager to being ready to move on. It's really easy to flip-flop on fake numbers. A manager can act as a brake on stuff like this. Shelton didn't. That's for sure. Donnie might. We'll have to see what he does when he's got a healthy unit and what kind of autonomy he has to make decisions like that. No matter what, we'll eventually be told the time has come for Tommy. And when they do, we'll hear about all the numbers we already knew about that led to the decision, the ones we've been talking about for over a month. And guess what? We'll never hear what magic numbers caused them to try the way they did. That's the really sad part. We'll never, ever hear what it is they claimed they were going to get out of them. You'd have to travel way too far back in time to land in a spot where Tommy Pham was a productive baseball player. I think like 2018, maybe 2017. And even then, there was threats he was going to Korea. I mean, to play. This isn't a guy that you hang your hat on and pretend was going to have some kind of miraculous turnaround at the age of 37 years old. He just wasn't going to. He's in tremendous shape for his age. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I certainly wasn't in shape like that at 38. And Andrew McCutchen is in wonderful shape at his age. Same exact kind of thing. That doesn't mean that there's not limitations on what you can and can't do anymore. Everything they get from Andrew McCutchen, they should count their blessings for. Because they're lucky they're getting it. He's beating the odds every time he goes out and does something positive. Every time he goes in the outfield and doesn't hyperextend his ACL. Every time he runs to first base and doesn't pull his hamstring. Every time he gets up cold and pinch hits or comes out up the steps to DH and legs out a double. Every time he doesn't come up lame, this team is winning by accident. They're lucky. You don't expect performances like that out of guys that are old. And guys like Andrew McCutchen, who have not dipped as much as some others to get to this point, maybe you have a little more faith in it. But how many years in a row do you need to see Tommy Pham play like Tommy Pham before you believe he's Tommy Pham? I mean, after they signed him, there was... You guys all know Michael McHenry, right? And well, he put out a tweet like right after it, like, yes! I couldn't believe it. I'm watching Apple TV. I hear their announcers going, well, they went out and got a guy like Tommy Pham. What a leader. What? I am floored by the praise people want to heap on this guy. Floored by it. I've never seen it. I've never understood it. I've always thought he had a reputation of being, well, kind of a dick. And he kind of is. You know, and he's starting crap with fans. Listen, I just want nothing to do with this anymore. Why do we have to do this? If we're going to waste time on an old guy that doesn't matter, give me Nick Solak. Get rid of Tommy Pham. I don't even care if it works. Because guess what? It at least won't be any worse. Just like firing Derek Shelton certainly didn't make the team any worse. When we come back, that's what I want to pick up talking about. The national media losing its mind about Derek Shelton getting fired. Like he somehow so didn't deserve it or so wasn't supported that he's miraculously now a good coach? No, that's not how it works. Welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Listen, it wasn't all Derek Shelton's fault, okay? Of course it wasn't. And it won't all be Don Kelly's either. That said, I've seen some, especially in the national media, try to paint this as somehow so much so not Derek Shelton's fault that he actually was and is a good manager. Listen, these people have an agenda, okay? They hate Bob Nutting and really any owner who doesn't spend, which is honestly a sentiment many of us share, right? But when you allow that bias to somehow talk yourself into pretending Derek Shelton actually did a good job here, I mean, or that some other team was going to snap him up, or that you need to ask the players how many of them got better playing for Shelton. You're proving you haven't watched this team play baseball. Not that you have some kind of moral high ground. Derek Shelton was a really, really bad baseball coach. He was stubborn about roles for bullpen arms, stubborn about pre-planned decisions in spite of changes in the variables, foolish about ever playing someone who performed in the next game, incapable of transitioning players from AAA to MLB because, frankly, he'd rather play a 39-year-old pushing a walker than a 26-year-old who finally made it to the league. He never had answers beyond platitudes. Certainly none that pointed at him as a problem. Flatly, his players didn't get better. The national media and some locals have chosen to defend indefensible simply because they hate another target worse. And that's just a disingenuous place to be and act from in any walk of life, let alone shilling for a pile of crap. He was objectively a bad manager. One that gives you an opportunity to still hit your favorite target. Bob and Ben never should have extended him. It's not like those two should come out of this smelling like roses, but you don't need to pretend that he should have kept his job or that you could pop him in LA and he'd have had the Dodgers humming. In fact, Dave Roberts did a job in the World Series last year with his decimated pitching staff that Derek Shelton never would have pulled off. Never. This management team watched a guy manage a unit that throughout his 5+ years here never improved fundamentally, never improved defensively, despite having 3 to 4 Gold Glove winners and finalists on his roster. Never stopped changing the lineups every game until finally a player publicly called him on it like 3 weeks ago. Never played a guy the next day when he'd done well the day before, unless it was his pre-planned 2 or 3 guys who play every day. Refused to give kids a real run of games to try to latch on. Never stepped in to correct obvious and repeated game after game mistakes. No. I'm sorry. Crying for Derek Shelton to the point you pretend he was competent? Well, it just shows you aren't yourself. You can want more done, but you can't pretend this shouldn't have been one of those things. Just because they didn't do everything you wanted doesn't mean you have to pretend that the one thing they did was wrong. It wasn't. They had to move on from Derek Shelton. Now, they didn't replace Ben Cherington. We just talked about a ton of trades yesterday. In fact, I had a whole segment about not wanting to make certain trades with Ben Cherington. So what is he right now? I think he's in an absolute lame duck situation. I really do. I think he does have to make some moves. I think everybody knows he has to make some moves, including Bob Nutting. And I think he'll be given the room to do that. But if a big move comes along, I do have my questions about whether Ben Cherington will be allowed to even explore it. Like, what if something came along and somebody wanted to trade you a really nice, controllable talent for Mitch Keller? Somebody that's got a year or two in Major League Baseball already. You know he's a decent player. You know that it's going to slot right into your lineup and make that side of things better. The contract terms match up. You think you can probably afford him pretty easily. Maybe it's even somebody who's signed to a decent extension already. You know? What if something like that comes along? Are the Pirates going to allow Ben Cherington to explore that? Do you want him to? I'm really torn on this because I understand why Bob Nutting would not want to move on from Ben Cherington right now. At least based on what he said in his recent interviews with Jason Mackey and Dejan Kovacevic, were two I saw. It really, he did a better job than he typically does of explaining the inner workings of some things, as far as feeling like if he replaced the GM, it would kind of set the entire operation into a state of no longer focusing on this job at hand, which is turning this baseball team around for 2025. I don't believe that he has any delusions that it's going to turn into a playoff team, but I do believe that he thinks there's enough components here that they can turn this around and stop the bleeding and finish out this season strong and show some signs that they weren't wrong about everything. They were just wrong about too many things. I understand wanting to do that. I can see that being something that you'd want to try, because you do have a decent amount of kids that are going to make their way up here still this year. And it's going to be, like we talked about that top 100 list there. I mean, to tell you for real, 4 of those guys could be here by the end of this year, if not the beginning of next. So it's not out of the question to like think that your team is going to get better. And if you like what you see from Don Kelly, and say you do get Horowitz back here, and by July you're like, oh man, if we had just had this guy in April and May, holy crap. You know, if Jones comes back and he looks like Jones, Oviedo comes back and he's pitching like Gonzalez comes back and picks up right where he left off after his one fateful swing that sent him to the IL this year. You start adding those things into this team under the new manager, and the defocus on the pre-planning with all the analytics that they've kind of taken away here with Radley Haddad getting let go. You start like seeing what this ship looks like turned around a little bit. Make a GM move in the offseason and you've got a much better idea of what you think you have. I'm okay with that. But at the same time, I think they're going to miss some opportunities in that process. That's something I think they're going to have to walk a tightrope on. I wish I was more confident in the executives that run this team to be able to do so. I still think Bob needs to clean house. I understand why he doesn't want to do it right now. But the point is, let's please not put Derek Shelton up on the cross and pretend he was some kind of savior that was hard done by. He wasn't. He had plenty of opportunity to evolve as a coach. And the first noticeable sign that he evolved as a coach was when he finally started using a closer to standardized lineup 3 weeks before he was fired. I needed to see a lot more growth, and there sure as hell were enough opportunities for it along the way. I'm sorry, Derek Shelton deserved to get fired. It wasn't the only one they should do all together. But that doesn't mean I'm going to cry because they did this one. Thank you for making Locked On Pirates your first listen today. For your second listen, checked out the all-new MLB Game Night. Make sure you check out the MLB Squad Show. I'm on there too. That's going to be a lot of fun a little bit later today. Check that out on this very network. Come right back. And yeah, good stuff. Make sure you check out tomorrow's show. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some options that I think the Pirates have as far as potentially targets they could go after on the trade market. I want to look at other teams, guys that are going to be on those contracts that make you start to think about moving on. See if we can maybe pick up some other people's castaways, even as we're trying to cast some guys overboard here. That's all I got for you. Stay locked, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me.